Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. So for this jumpsuit you'll be needing a princess dart for the front bodice. So here I've marked out 4 inches for the overlapping, and here is the bust line, here is the nipple line, the under bust line, and the waistline, and from here to here is 16 inches. So I'm going to start off by inserting the shoulder measurement. I'm going to mark the same shoulder measurement on the bust line for reference purpose. Then I'm going to connect it up to the shoulder line. Before I start inserting my bust measurement, I'll first of all mark out my dart line. So on the nipple line, I'm going to be marking the distance between the nipples, leaving it at 4 inches. Doing the same on the under bust and on the waistline. And then I'm going to be taking 1 inch from both sides of the dart line. I'm going to be repeating the same on the under bust line, and then I'm going to use my ruler to connect these dots. Next, I'm going to be working on the bust line. Here I'm going to be placing my tape on the bust line, marking 2.5 inches towards the shoulder line. Next thing I'm going to do is to take 1/2 inch from both sides of the armpit dart. Then I'm going to connect the nipple to the dart line. Then I'll try and make a little dart at the armpit area. Then the next thing I'm going to do now is to add 1 inch to the lower end of the dart, and then I'll connect the lower dart towards the 1 inch I marked outside the armpit. And then I'm going to start inserting the bust measurement now. So for the bust measurement, I'll take out the accurate bust measurement. I'll add 1 inch to it for a bustier effect, and then I'll add another 1 inch for joining the princess seam after cutting. Then I'll connect the armpit area to the bust line. Then I'm going to measure out what I have left at the center front of my princess dart, and I'm moving whatever I have left to the other leg of the dart, and then I'll complete my measurement there. I'm going to repeat the same process on the waistline. Don't forget to add 1 inch for joining the princess seam after cutting. So here I'm doing the same here. I'm measuring whatever I have here. I'm moving it to the other leg of the dart. Then I'll complete the measurement. Then I'm going to add 1 inch for joining the princess seam after cutting. The next thing I'm going to do is to add my seam allowances. Marking the neckline, and I'm leaving it at 3.5 inches. And for the depth, I'll be marking 6.5 to 7 inches. Then I'll be determining where the breaking point of my top will be, and I'm leaving it at 10 inches here, and I'm going to connect the 10 inches to the 7 inches and then up to the 3.5 inches at the neckline. Next, we are going to be working on the overlapping. On the overlapping we have 4 inches, but at the center front we have 3 inches. So I'm going to be reducing this to match with the center front. I'm just going to remove 1/2 inch leaving 3.5 inches, 3 inches to overlap the center front and 1/2 inch for the seam allowance. My seam allowances. Next is to cut out the waistband, and my waistband is 3 inches long and the width is highly determined by your waistline measurements plus your seam allowances. This is for the front bodice and this is for the back bodice. Don't forget to add your zip allowances also for your back waistband. So the next thing we are going to be doing now is to cut the blazer for the front bodice. Here I've placed the back pattern on my piece of fabric, and here also, as you can see, I'm just going to be tracing this out as a guide to mark the blazer. So as soon as I'm done tracing this out, I'm just going to keep this aside and complete my measurement. So I'm going to keep this aside, and don't forget to add your 4 inches for the overlapping before the center front. As you can see, I've done so here. So next thing I'm going to do is to determine the length of the blazer, and I'm leaving mine at 25 inches. That is where the hip line is also. And then I'm moving my tape forward to determine the break point of my blazer, which I'm going to leave at 15 inches. I'm extending it towards the overlapping line. So here, from here on is style. You can decide to mark a curved area for your blazer mouth or leave it straight. shape you want to take it to, you can do that. Okay, so here I'm just going to be marking the hip line, and I'm going to insert my hip measurement here, and then I'm going to add my seam allowance. I'm just going to be cutting out mine like so, and you do the same. So here we're going to be doing a little modification for the blazer. Because I added dart to the back bodice, I'm just going to remove the dart because I'm not going to be putting any dart on this blazer. So what I'm simply doing is to mark 1 inch at the outer seam of this bodice, 1 inch that I added for the dart. Then at the under bust line we added 3/4 of an inch too for the dart. So I'm simply going to indicate where the under bust could have been, and here I'm just going to remove the 3/4 of an inch here. So I'm just going to connect it to this point. If you don't do this, you have a lot of excesses on your blazer, and you wouldn't want that because it will affect the fitting. So I'm simply going to slice this off and then work on the rest of the pattern. So here I've cut out my sleeve. I have a basic sleeve tutorial, and I'll leave the link on the description box below. So I've cut out my own sleeve, and here I have some piece of fabric here that I'll be using to put a simple turn up for the mouth of my sleeve. The length is 4 inches, but the width is highly determined by your round sleeve, especially where this turn up will be sitting just like this. Okay, I also cut some straps of fabric that I'll be using for the belt I'm going to be putting for the sleeve. This is just an illustration. My own is about 15 to 18 inches long and 4 inches width. So I'm just going to be using this for the belt, and I'm cutting 4 pieces of this, 2 for each sleeves. So the next thing we are going to be doing is to cut the interfaces. Here I've cut the interface for the back bodice. I've also cut interfaces for the front bodice as well. Then I've also cut interface for the blazer. So you go ahead and cut yours. So the next thing I'm going to be doing now is to go on to the sewing proper. So I'm going to be putting the interface of the front bodice right side to each other like this, and I'm going to be sewing along the neckline like this. Okay, and I'll sew down the overlapping. So now that I'm done stitching this together, as you can see, I'm going to notch these areas to avoid frown lines. Then I'm going to be turning this inside out, and when I'm done turning it inside out, I should have something like this. Then I'll stitch the mouth closed like so. So we're going to work on the next level. Now we have both sides done. We're going to be attaching our princess seam we're going to be sewing our princess seam together at these areas. And when we're done sewing this together, you should have something like this. And here is when you determine where you put your overlapping, whether on the left side or the right side. So here it's an example of how to overlap your front bodice, and I'm going to stitch this lower part and use a pin to hold these areas down while I work. Then the next thing to do here is to work on the back bodice. For the back bodice, we are not going to be putting the interface yet, so we're simply going to work on the dart first. So I'm just going to sew the dart here, and then I'll mark 1/2 inch below the back bodice, and I'm going to trim this off. This will help me avoid frown lines when I fix my zipper. So here is the blazer part of it, and I've placed both sides together and I've sewn along these areas. Okay, so you sew yours as well, and then turn it out and give it a good pressing. Then we go on to the next level. So here we're going to be cutting out our pants pattern. I have a pants pattern already on my channel, so I'll leave the link on the description box below. So what I did is just to put the pattern down and then add my seam allowances, and at this area I added 1/2 inch all through. Then I'm going to be marking out where my dart is supposed to be, and then the hemming allowance also. So for the back block as well, I've also done the same with a little twist at the crotch level. So here I've added the seam allowances to the sides. Then on this area I added 1/2 inch as well, but from here 9 inches down from the waistline I added 1.5 inches because I'll be putting a zipper at the back of my jumpsuit, so I needed enough space to do that. So you can go ahead and do yours too. So once I'm done cutting out my pants, I'm simply going to be marking my dart to match the one I have on the upper bodice. Then I'm going to be hemming the bottom part of my pants as well. So you hem for the 4 pieces of your pants. So here, after hemming and adding your dart, the next thing you're going to be doing now is to join it at the crotch level. So I'm joining my front pant at the crotch level using the 1/2 inch I marked out for it. Here is the back block, so I've done the same here. From here I'm going to be sewing 1/2 inch up to this level. So I'm just going to leave like 8 inches or 8.5 inches down from the waistline for my zipper. Now the next thing to do now is to work on the pocket. For the front pattern here, as you can see, I have a piece of lining fabric, very light fabric under it. I'm using it to form my pocket. Here is a close angle to it, and the front is open, so it's 7 inches width and 10 inches long. So I'm simply going to place my pant on this piece, and then here, as you can see, I have my seam allowances marked out, and after my seam allowances I marked 1.5 inch in and connected it to the 7 inches like so. So that is where your pocket is going to sit. So I'm just going to cut this out. You have to take note of a very important thing while cutting this out. You're only going to be cutting out the first layer of your lining fabric, that is your pocket fabric. Let me show you what I mean. As you can see, I only cut out the upper layer of your pocket fabric. Let me show you for clarity purpose. I did the same here, and this is for the other side of our front pocket. So I'm just going to show you how to sew this. So here I'm going to open this up right now. Then you get a fabric like this, a piece of fabric like this, and place it right side facing you on your pocket fabric, and you're going to sew along this area. And once you sew along this area, you'll go over to the next level. So now that you're done sewing it, you now have an idea of how your pocket is going to look after making it. As you can see now, I've done that already. So what I'm going to do next here is to bring this out like so. Okay, and I'm going to open it up like so, place it on my pocket side, and I'm going to sew along this angle. Then when I'm done sewing I should have something like this. And what you need to do is to notch these areas to avoid frown lines. So what I'm going to do is to flip this over and insert it properly and put it in its proper place. Now that I'm done with this, the next thing I'm going to be doing here is to top stitch at the pocket mouth. Okay, you have to top stitch this area and then you sew on the top like so, and we'll go on to the next level. Now the final and last step to this pocket sewing here, after making this area, is to sew 1 inch down from the waistline and hold your pocket down at the lower angle as well. And then the last step you have to do here is to sew this area together and close your pocket. Then we'll go over to the next level. So here, after sewing on your pockets, the next thing you will do here is to join your trouser by the inseam, both at the crotch level like so. I'm going to be putting this together. You may want to use a pin. You may want to use pins to hold this down before you sew it. Okay. After sewing the inseam, the next thing you are going to be working on is the outseam. So here I'm just going to use my seam allowance and sew the side seam of my pants. After doing that and I turn it over, this is what it should look like. And then if you observe, I've left 10 inches at one side of my pants for the blazer. So here is the upper bodice. As you can see, I'm going to attach the bands to my bodice. So when I'm done doing that, as you can see, I've attached this and I've also joined one side of my bodice, leaving the other one out for a good purpose. So what I'm just going to do here is to join the upper bodice to the trouser, leaving the other side that is not joined together. So I'm just going to place the other side of the back bodice like this and join it to the trouser, leaving the side open. So when I'm done with that, this is what I should have. This one side is open, so I'm putting the blazer on top of it like so, and I'm just going to use this front bodice to adjust the blazer to fit in, because we use the back bodice to cut it and it's not the same. So after that, I'm just going to join it to the side and close it. So after doing that, you should have something like this. And as you can see, I've put my overlapping at this area, okay, because I want, when I close my blazer like this, the button line will match with each other. So you go ahead and do that also. So what I'm going to do next now, after joining my back and the zipper, is to join my interface. So here I've sewn one side of the interface, and I'll show you what it looks like and how you should do yours. So for the other side of the interface, I'm simply going to sew along the neckline and then along the zipper line like so, and then turn it out. So this is the other side I've done already. Let me show you what it looks like. So when I open this inside out, when I turn this inside out, this is what it looks like, okay? And if you open the back side to it, you see how neat it looks. So you may want to do the same to this side as well. Don't forget to cut off the excess of the zip over there. So when you're done with joining your interface like so, the next thing you're going to do is to fold in the shoulder line to join the shoulders together. So you grab the front and envelope it with the interface of the back bodice like so, and then you're just going to sew 1/2 inch on the neckline and 3/4 of an inch at the shoulder line. Then when you're done joining your shoulders, you keep your jumpsuit aside and we'll work on the sleeves. So here I'm just going to start off with sewing the straps for the belt, and this is an illustration of how you should do that. You're only going to sew a curved angle to this point and join the open end to it, and then when you're done doing that, you should have something like this, okay? Then I'm going to turn this inside out like so, and when I'm done turning it inside out, you should have something like this, okay? And when you have something like this, what you do next is to place this on any area you want your belt to sit. For mine, I left it at 10 inches of my sleeve length, and I'm just going to join this together after putting both sides together and sew based on my measurement. So here, after joining this, you should have something like this, both belts out like so. So we are just going to work on the turn up. So for the piece of fabric you cut for your turn up, you're going to close it right side to right side like this and sew based on your measurement. Then after sewing it together, you should have something like this, okay? And then I'm just going to fold this into two like so. Then I'll take it to my machine. I'll close the open end and get it ready to attach it to the sleeves. So the next thing I'm going to do here is to show you how to do this simple turn up. So I'm just going to place the right side of this turn up fabric to the wrong side of my main sleeve, and I'm just going to sew around, then turn it up like so, and then I'll tack it together. Then the next thing I'm going to do now is to attach it to the main jumpsuit, and as you can see, I've also inserted my buttons and my jumpsuit is ready. Thank you guys for watching. See you guys in my next video. Bye.